All right, let's talk about a very specific kind of founder. Maybe this is you. You've hit your targets, you've seen the success you aimed for, but now there's this feeling of drift. You're building this great business, but you're secretly wondering, what is this actually for? If that sounds familiar, this 5-step plan is designed to give you some real clarity. So you've done everything right on paper, haven't you? Revenue's climbing, you launched successfully, the team's getting bigger. And yet, underneath all of that, there's that quiet, nagging question. Is this really enough? You know, as entrepreneurs, our default setting is always more hustle, right? Just work harder. But what if I told you the problem isn't that you're not putting in enough effort? The real issue is that your focus is, well, it's just pointed in the wrong direction. And that's creating weakness right where you need to be the strongest. And this brings us right to what we can call the founder's dilemma. It's what happens when profit fails to be a solid anchor for your identity. This is a quiet epidemic among people who build things for a living. Let's give this feeling a name: burnout without bankruptcy. It's a really strange place to be. Your company is doing great, maybe even scaling fast, but inside, you're just adrift. That launch day high wears off, the praise fades, and all you're left with is the next quarterly target. It's just an endless cycle.
You know, this isn't a new problem. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote about this almost 2,000 years ago. He said, if your self-worth rises and falls with quarterly numbers, you are enslaved to volatility. Think about that. When your entire sense of who you are is tied to things you can't actually control, you're not leading. You're just a slave to the market's whims.
Okay, so that's the problem. Let's get into the solution. This is our recovery plan. Step 1. We've got to escape the profit trap. It's all about reclaiming your self-worth from the market. Now, let's be really clear here. This is not some anti-profit rant. Profit is absolutely essential. It's the fuel for your business. But when profit is the only thing you're chasing, when it's not guided by any principle, you're building a very fragile company and a very fragile sense of self. See, after a certain point, you're not just looking for more income. You're looking for coherence. You want things to make sense. So that leads us right into step 2, reclaiming your focus. The whole idea here is to stop looking outside for your validation and instead start building what the Stoics called an inner fortress, a source of stability that's all your own. And how do you build that? Well, it all starts with one simple but incredibly powerful question. What is actually in your control and what isn't? I mean, really think about it. So much of the anxiety that comes with being a founder comes from obsessing over things that are, in the end, totally out of our hands. Let's break this down. This is the dichotomy of control. In one column, you've got everything you can't control: market downturns, what your competitors do, sudden algorithm shifts, investor moods, you name it. But in the other column, that's your domain, your effort, your ethics, your discipline, and maybe most importantly, how you handle yourself when the pressure is on. That second column, that's where you need to live. Because look, that external chaos, it's going to rise. That's a guarantee. And when it does, your internal structure, your personal standards, they have to harden to meet it. Revenue goes up and down, but your standards, they don't budge. That is what real resilience looks like. Okay, so once your focus is in the right place, we're ready for step 3, which is all about training for adversity. This is a mindset shift. We're going to stop seeing disruption as a crisis and start seeing it as a kind of resistance training for your business. Have you ever noticed how some of the strongest companies were actually built during a recession? There's a reason for that. Adversity is like a filter. It forces you to be precise. All the waste gets cut. All the useless vanity metrics, they just disappear. And what's left? Your core principles, what your business really is. So how do you train for this? Here's a really practical tool called the pre-mortem. It's simple. Every quarter, you get your team together and ask one question. If our business failed a year from now, what would have been the reason? Now, the point here isn't to create panic. It's to force preparation. You identify every single preventable weakness you can think of, and then you start fixing them now. And all this preparation naturally leads us to step 4. You need to define your code. This is all about consciously forging an identity for yourself that has absolutely nothing to do with your company's metrics. So what is this personal code? Well, it defines who you are when things get tough. It's the part of you that would still be there, totally intact, if your revenue went to 0 tomorrow. It's a set of rules based on your own standards, not your success. And ultimately, this code, this is your source of real freedom, of sovereignty. And that brings us to the final step. Step 5, align for purpose. This is where we take all these internal principles we've built and point them towards something bigger. It's about moving from just chasing profit to a model of disciplined service. We hear a lot about finding your passion, but real, lasting purpose, it's not found, it's built through alignment. It's where 3 things come together. First, your character, those principles you will not compromise on. Second, your skill, the craft that you bring to the table, your unique expertise. And third, your contribution, the actual value you deliver to other people. When you get those 3 things, character, skill, and contribution, to line up perfectly, something amazing happens. Profit stops being the goal and becomes a natural byproduct of your mission. Your work as an entrepreneur transforms into something more like disciplined service. And that is a foundation that absolutely cannot be shaken. So, I want to leave you with a question that reframes this entire journey. The most important question you can ask yourself isn't, how big can I build this? It's, how solid can I become? Start there. Build from that.